Hello, everyone. Gotta fix this. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Hannah Stinson with the Alliance for Green Heat. And as you know, we facilitate small grant funding to firewood banks around the country. So today we have Ken Quinier and Cale Pete with us from the Washoe Tribe Emergency Management Department and Environmental Department to speak with us about how the Washoe's Firewood program that specifically helps elders has grown over the last 4 years. A brief introduction for Cale and Ken is Cale is currently the director of Washoe Environmental Protection Department, which oversaw the stewardship agreement to restore Meeks Meadow and proper functioning conditions. The majority of timber removed has been used for firewood for the tribal elders, and he has been with the tribe's environmental department for 10 years. Ken is currently the emergency management director with Washoe Tribe of Nevada and California and leads the tribe's preparedness resources department and the Washoe Wood program. His background is in emergency response and management and disaster response, and he served as logistics officer for the U.S. Marine Corps and has a BS in applied health from Oregon State University. For those that might not be familiar, the Washoe Tribe Elder Firewood Program has a paid crew of trained and dedicated sawyers to produce over 1,500 cords of firewood annually. 1/3 of the wood is sold at market price to non-tribal firewood users, and that funds the distribution of free firewood to elder tribal members. They secured 2 large processors through USDA Forest Service Wood Innovations Wood Product Infrastructure Grants since 2023 through 2025. And they've secured multiple Alliance for Green Heat small grants with us as well to purchase metal storage structures, chainsaws, gravel base to improve their roads, and build out their woodlot. They welcome wood from everywhere and benefit from local projects which reduce wildfire risk and restore native ecosystems on both federal and tribal land. So thank you for welcoming. We will have a Q&A portion at the end of this, and so I encourage everyone to use the Q&A window on your Zoom screen, and then we can engage with all the questions at the very end. Moving on to Cale and Ken.
And then, hello everybody. Like Hannah mentioned, my name is Cale Pete. I'm the environmental director for the Washoe Tribe in Nevada and California. We just want to give first off just an overview of the Washoe Tribe for a little bit, as you guys see our ancestral maps and our nuclear boundaries and just where we're located. So the Washoe Tribal headquarters is located in Gardnerville, Nevada. I like to tell people it's just right below Lake Tahoe. A lot of people know where Lake Tahoe is, not Gardnerville. So that's always good to let people know. We're a small tribe. We're small but mighty. Um, we were removed from the Tahoe Basin. I'm definitely trying to get our presence back up in the basin through different outreach, whether that be through forestry projects, Washoe signage, renaming of waterways up in the Tahoe Basin, things like that. We're just under 1,400 enrolled Washoe tribal members. We're separated into 4 different tribal communities. We have our Dressaville community, which I reside in, which is our largest. We have our Stewart community. We have Carson Colony, our Woodfords or Hungaloti community, and also our off-reservation base is fairly large. I know they always don't get represented into these type of discussions, but we definitely want to give them a shout out to let them know that their voice is heard. Then if you take a look at the map on the right, so those our ancestral homelands are stretched out into the yellow. We still feel that as a tribe that our boundaries go further than that. We have trade routes all the way back going down to the Pacific Ocean. So it extends north up to the Honey Lake, Susanville area and down south down to Mono Lake. You really can't see it too good on these maps, but we're really just relegated to our tribal communities. We have allotment lands, and just recently, the Washoe Tribe and their Wemulti Preserve acquired just over 10,000 acres in the Loyalton area near Truckee. And Ken, do you have anything to add to that?
I think it's pretty good.
And then for here, this is the timeline. So the Washoe Tribe, we are the lead on our Mayala Wata restoration project or our Meeks Meadow restoration project. So that's in collaboration with the U.S. Forest Service Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, and as well as the California Ottawa Conservancy. They have been great partners in this project. This project really spans from the early 2000s with the Forest Service looking into the meadow. Definitely needed some fuels reductions in their cultural fire. So earliest conversations of that were pretty much 2006, 2008. The Washoe Tribe, we received a planning grant through the California Ottawa Conservancy, which really allowed the Washoe Tribe to develop our cultural management plan. So the overall goal for Meeks Meadow is to restore the meadow back to proper functioning condition by removing encroached conifers up there and be able to bring back the tribe's culturally significant plants to the meadow. The meadow footprint is around 283 acres. And right now we're at the implementation stage right now. So out of the 283 acres, we have 230 currently thinned of lodgepole, and with our traditional cultural plants, we consulted with our tribal elders. It's called our RICRAC or our Washoe Cultural Advisory Council. So we go to them to like, hey, what plants do the Washoe tribal elders want to see back out on the landscape so they could utilize those for traditional practices. Um, and just much like everybody, COVID hit around 2020s, so that really put a hamper, slowed the project down a bit, along with transition with our organization as well as with the Forest Service. So that slowed a lot of things down. So implementation kicked off in April of 2025. And right now they had a great field season of removing lodgepole. Like I mentioned, 230 acres currently treated. And with that, it's definitely a unique project. This is the largest project that the tribe has ever taken on. And it's really, this project serves as a template for other Native American tribes in the country, as this is one of the first times that a tribe has restoration management authority on Forest Service land, so it's not tribal land. So be able to build those partnerships with the LTBMU, with them and the Washoe Tribe to get this done was huge, which is something we're looking to also expand on in the future to get the tribe's basin back up in the basin and other national forests. Um, let's see, looking on here. That's pretty much what I have for this slide. Ken, do you have anything?
This is a good point. Thanks for the segue, because as the slide timeline shows, while they were working on the Meeks Meadow restoration project, the tribe has had an Elderwood program since 2006 as well. But in the earlier years, it was just somebody would donate, go out and cut some logs. They would have some extra funds, and they'd hire a log truck to drop off a load of logs, and then volunteers would go out and cut those logs and split those logs and deliver them to the elders. But back then it was just a little bit, maybe a half cord, a pickup truck load worth is what could be distributed to the elders to fulfill their needs. It wasn't until 2021, after the Tamarack fire, uh, when the Forest Service was removing hazard trees and needed a place to bring those hazard trees, that we kind of opened our eyes to said, hey, we've got this lot here next to the tribal headquarters that is not being used, and we used to bring little bits of, a few logs in every year, every winter for the elders. Sure, we told the Forest Service, bring us your hazard trees. And that resulted in over 1,000 cords of hazard trees being brought down that summer. There's this huge boom of fuel logs all of a sudden that we had, which kind of sparked the thoughts within the emergency management department that's saying we need a way to process this wood. So we started contracting laborers and bringing in the workload to the workforce to turn 1,000 cords of logs into firewood for our tribal elders, which started the boom of our Elderwood program. And that, but as that went along, that was just one wildfire. Discussions were in place about there was a greater need to remove the biomass and the fuel logs out of the forest in the area. And we had already started a wood yard this time. Now we had a wood yard that was kind of recognized with this mountain of firewood and all these logs. That year, we produced more firewood than our tribe actually, the tribal elders needed, which is when we started reaching out to other tribes in the region who didn't have access to the forest, who also had elders that needed heat in the winter. We started the Sharewood program. So we had an Elderwood program where we provided firewood for our elders, and then we had the Sharewood program where we provided firewood for other tribes' elders. But with every program, you have to sustain it. This was one event that brought us these fuel logs. In working with collaboration with the environmental department, they identified that they had this mixed metal project that had been in the works for some time, and they're coming up to the point where they were about to start harvesting these invasive pinyon pines, and we started talking about, well, we'd love to get those pinyon pines down here to sustain our elderwood program, and that's where we partnered with our environmental department to go after the WPIA grant to get equipment and workforce that could actually process the projected firewood from the Meeks Meadow project. It was next slide.
Yeah, I actually have one more thing.
Go ahead.
And with that too, Ken mentioned the pinyon pine. So it wasn't the pinyon pine, it was the conifers lodgepole. The pinyon pine, the Washoe Tribe, we're over here planting pinyon pine and growing pinyon pine. But definitely one thing we worked in that stewardship agreement with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit is that the Washoe Tribe gains ownership of those logs once it's removed from their Meeks Meadow project area. So we have it worked in our contracting with the contractor to be able to transport the logs. It's a fairly long distance. They have to go all the way around the north side of Lake Tahoe down to Carson City to hit some weigh scales for them to get that weigh ticket. So the Forest Service knows how much biomass is being removed from the meadow, and that wood is being delivered down to the Washoe Tribal woodlot.
Thank you for that correction, Cale. As mentioned, he's the environmentalist. I'm into emergency management. I don't know a tree from another tree, but I know how to cut them up and turn them into firewood.
And then this is just a little bit more about our Mixed Meadow Restoration Project or a Mayala Wapta Restoration Project. So we could just start off looking at the pictures first so you guys could see before, during, and after meadow restoration. So you see a lot of the encroached lodgepole. There's definitely a lot of young growth in there. As you see, just over time, what it looks like now. One thing for this being the tribe's first project of this magnitude, it's pretty shocking to see, but it looks like a bomb went off, in the middle of the woods. Just seeing it looks like scorched, all that, just bare. But definitely over time, it's going to just regen those culturally significant native plants out there. There's also some tree species that we left in the meadow. So like cedar, Jeffrey, things like that. We were only targeting the lodgepole in that area. Then on the bottom portion of the pictures, you guys could see before. So this is facing away from Lake Tahoe. So Lake Tahoe's to the back of us on the before picture. So you guys could just see how heavily encroached Meeks Meadow was. You could kind of see that little meadow footprint there. Then still before, and this is facing Lake Tahoe. So you can still see what it looks like then. And right now it looks completely different. Definitely we're grateful. We definitely want to get a lot more tribal membership out there to be able to practice our culturally significant traditions out there. So that's definitely great to see. And we're definitely grateful for the partnership with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, the California Tahoe Conservancy. They have been great partners in this. Like I mentioned before, we received a planning grant through the California Tahoe Conservancy in the early days around 2015, 2016 to create our cultural management plan. So that outlines our different protocols for vegetation. How are we doing surveys in different vegetation community types? A bunch of things like that. And then we ended up signing the stewardship agreement with the Lake Tahoe Basin Management Unit, which was key. Then after that, the California Tahoe Conservancy, they share our goal. They want to see the Washoe tribal people, thrive up in the Lake Tahoe Basin. For them, they also contributed another decent amount of pot of funding to our stewardship agreement with the LTBMU and just other contracting funds throughout the time to help cover the cost. It is a big cost for this project. This wouldn't be able to get done without the Washoe Tribe building those relationships with other outside agencies is huge. And like I said, the goal is just to be able to get native vegetation back and thriving populations. So the Washoe tribal elders, youth, other departments, we could go up there and provide education to our tribal members. There's things up there like wild onion, which we call boshti. So they do a lot of collections up there around our region. Now there's wild strawberry. Like I saw wild strawberry up there. Went up there, picked it, ate it. It was good. There's blueberries up there, bracken fern, just a bunch of different plant species out there that we're definitely happy to see come back. One thing with the groundwater recharge, those lodgepole, as you guys probably know already, they serve as straws. So they suck all the water out of that meadow. So now we have piezometers in there with level loggers to be able to track groundwater data. That's another goal we have. So we have data of pre-thinning, during thinning, and also post-thinning. And definitely when the trees started coming out, right now we saw a huge spike in the ground recharge of the water levels up there. So that's definitely great to hear and see. I'm waiting to see what it looks like, in another month or two, just to be able to see how green it's looking up there. Definitely a shift from you see on the right side, just how bare it looks up there, just super dry.
So as you see that this objective to restore the meadow has been a catalyst. And in 2023, we started a wood program. We had kind of created the expectation and the realization that there was wood to be provided to our tribal elders, those in need. But we needed a way to sustain it. We needed a way to take that stewardship and keep going with it.
And then this one also highlights, you guys can see the pictures below. So those are the log decks. That's our Myalawata restoration project. I don't remember off the top of my head how much logs were transported down to the tribe, but it was a good hefty amount. And you guys could see on the right-hand side, just those pile of chip. So a lot of the larger biomass, the logs, the tribe wants, but a lot of the smaller stuff that's not really usable by our elder firewood program, a lot of that stuff was chipped and taken down to a biomass facility down in Woodland. And with that, I think Ken's probably looking into other ways how we could utilize biomass, things like that for the firewood program.
So like Kale mentioned the metal project was a long time in the workings, but regretfully, they weren't able to start logging and clearing those uh, lodgepole pines out until this last summer. So we had already started a program, and when we knew that the plan was to bring the lodgepole out, and as in many plans, there's many variables with the right timing, there's many factors that were involved with getting those logs out. So we went to the Forest Service in 2023 to get the Wood Product Infrastructure Assistance Grant. Much of our grant application was based on the fact that we had this agreement, the environmental department had this agreement, and they were going to thin this forest, and we had a lot of biomass coming out that would need to be processed. I think that was a critical component in our WPIA grant application, that we had this stewardship agreement and that these logs need to be processed. That the Forest Service authorized us $1 million in that 2023 grant. Half of that was dedicated to workforce. We needed a crew, we needed personnel. Previously, we had just been working off of other smaller grants and contractors, but under the Forest Service grant agreement in 2023, they required that if we're going to use a crew and use their grant funds to hire a crew, it had to be employees with benefits and training and certifications, and it had to be an official HR approved organization to process our firewood. Now, And then along with that equipment. So that's where we went and started looking into the investment in the good equipment so we could process large amounts of firewood. That's when we learned about sustainability. The Meeks Meadow project didn't happen that in 2023. It didn't happen in 2024 either. That's when we had the equipment, we had the crew. We at that time we were a little bit desperate for fuel logs. We'd used up our hazard trees from the previous fire, but luckily we had our wood yard. We had reached out to our many partners. We continued our relationship with the U.S. Forest Service. We reached out to arborists. We worked with the National Forest Foundation. Any forest organization we could talk to, we made our wood yard open and available for them to bring logs from anywhere. That created quite the variety of wood that we get. We get trees that were removed from people's homes and businesses by arborists. But we made our wood yard available. So that way we were the go-to location for bringing biomass out of the mountains. That has grown over the years. National Forest Foundation, there are not a lot of places that will take non-marketable logs that you can bring them to. A lot of arborists and companies, especially the power companies, when they're clearing under power lines, they're taking their biomass to the dumps, paying the dumps to drop their logs off, and then the dumps would turn around and turn it into firewood and sell it. We provided them a location where they could bring it for free. We didn't charge for them to drop their logs. We would turn it around, take those logs, and make a firewood out of it for those that were in need. That was the beginning of a sustainable program. Then in 2025, the Meeks Meadows project started, and last year we received, my estimates are we're close to 7,000 cords of firewood came down last summer. And we took Hannah out to do a visit today and showed her the log decks. There's a lot of biomass. And when you look at our location here at the base of the Sierras, just below Lake Tahoe, we've got multiple forests at our doorstep. And all these forests, as Kale's mentioned, need work. They need restoration. The fuels in those forests are excessive from decades of not being logged and cleared and thinned. And now the Forest Service is pushing hard to get that biomass out and utilized. For what they tell us is that for every million board feet of marketable timber that they can pull out, we should expect the equal amount of non-marketable timber, or fuel logs that I like to call them, biomass to come out, and there needs to be utilization for it. It's about communicating with our partners, making our program available to help out. So while the foundation for the tribe has been to be stewards in their homelands and restore those forests to health, reduce wildfire threats, and utilize that biomass, it's been an ongoing evolution of opportunities that we've been pursuing. In emergency management, we always have a saying that we don't ever let any disaster or emergency go. We always want to optimize the benefits of any emergency, whether it be education of others or taking advantage of the hazard trees that come from wildfires. Wildfires are regretful. They're a horrible thing. We want to change ultimately our forests, but if we can get the biomass out and we can turn it into something good for those that are in need, that was our focus and our objective. In 2023, we had a horrific winter storm on New Year's Eve. This area we get a little snow once in a while, but by noon it's starting to melt off and people can move around. This storm brought in multiple feet of snow to the valley floor. Down here in the Gardnerville area, where we normally don't get much more than a few inches, we had 2+ feet of snow. And that meant that everybody was snowed in. Our tribal elders, propane companies could not get to the propane tanks. Most people heated their homes with propane. Luckily, we had started our Elderwood program. We were already producing firewood. We were able to dig out our wood yard and provide an abundance of firewood with some emergency funds to people who could no longer get propane to their homes. And that was the connection between emergency management and the vital need to have that alternative source of heat that many people had wood stoves and depended on it. But with the forest being more restrictive and people, not be able to get up there and cut their own wood, or the cost of wood going up, it has become less popular, and people would have to have, electricity and propane as well. Another thing for our program that's important on this slide is that in the WPA grant, it was focused on, were we serving a vulnerable population? As mentioned in Cale's introduction, we have 4 communities in our tribe, 3 in Nevada, 1 in California. These tribal communities are underserved. They do have they do meet that poverty level when we recognize that we're providing this firewood for that targeted vulnerable population. And that was another emphasis, an important factor when you're going after a WPA grant that I think was critical, that we not only were utilizing the biomass the Forest Service needed brought out of the forest, but we were serving those communities that needed it the most. And in connection to that, we were also using this program to, in the first grant, half the money was for workforce. We were providing workforce opportunities and jobs for people who couldn't get jobs at other forms, people who just had a knack for working in the woods or cutting wood, and would, that was their resume. And so we were able to hire people who couldn't be hired other places. We were able to provide jobs for those who couldn't get jobs normally, people who didn't have high school diplomas, people who were out of prison, people recovering from addictions and other things. We were able to provide good paying job opportunities and skill development for those who needed it, which has become essential for the sustainment of our program. In the picture you see there, under this grant, we did a lot of research with the for our WPA grant, and started looking into how do other organizations split firewood. At the time, we were just using the local splitters that you get at your Tractor Supply or your Home Depot store that you use at home. Those did not produce the firewood and split adequately for the quantities of biomass that we had coming out of the mountains and that we were planning on receiving from the Meeks Meadow project. We discovered these split force splitters. The SP 1316 there is a self-propelled vertical splitter, high speed. It cycles quite rapidly. It has a hydraulic lift arm. It comes out of Canada. It has a hydraulic lift arm to lift the bigger rounds up onto your splitting platform. The worker doesn't have to be bent down or squat down on the ground to work. They can stand up straight. It has a foot control pedal where they can control the splitter with their foot and split the larger logs into firewood. It drops over to a conveyor belt that runs it up, and we can dump it into either our wood bags that we use. We started using 1/3 cord wood bags, which was pretty ideal, or into a pile. Another beautiful thing about these is they're self-propelled. The little motor that runs the hydraulics splitter could also move that splitter around, so you don't have to hook up to a truck or get 3 or 4 people to grab the splitter to pull it out of the way when you've moved, split all the wood around you. You can back it up to the pile, keep closer to the logs you're splitting, or move it around to another location where you've got rounds and wood that needs to be split up. A very good tool, very effective and beneficial.
Back.
Pardon?
And we'll go back to the marketability.
With this, our program, we've discovered that grants are great. They provide initial startup funds for our program, but they aren't sustainable. The Forest Service, the WPA grant no longer allows workforce funding. It'll fund equipment, it'll fund other services, but you can't use it for employing your workforce. But as we all know, it takes people to process firewood. It's a very labor-intensive project. Even with the latest equipment, it still takes people to load the logs, to move the logs, unload the trucks. It takes labor. So how do we sustain a program? Our goal and objective is to provide a source for that, a place for that biomass to come out of the forest to be utilized and not and then at the same time provide elder firewood for our elders and those who are in need of it. So that's what we came up with what we called the salewood program. Some of our logs could not be sold, but because they were donated from the Forest Service, they're charity logs. They can't be marketed under the agreements that we received them under. But other organizations brought us logs that could be marketed. Arborists, they don't care what you do with their wood. They bring it down. They're just trying to dispose of things that they have no use for. And National Forest Foundation would purchase and own the logs that they brought to us. So they had already acquired the ownership of those logs from the Forest Service through their agreements. And so when they brought us firewood or fuel logs, they could be processed. If we wanted to sell them, we could. That's what we came with our Washoe program. The objective is that how do we sustain this program? What we do is we sell locally. We want to sell the biomass, the firewood, which provides the income to pay the crew to continue to produce it for the charitable donation wood.
Yeah, and then our mixed meadows logs, that looks like a picture of it on the bottom left of all of our log decks that we have. So that's just still some of the portion of the mixed meadow logs are still more decked up there and they still need to be cut. But definitely a lot of people burn wood around here in the Carson Valley. So a lot of our tribal members do have older homes. Their main source of heat is burning firewood, along with other people in the Carson Valley. So a lot of people still burn a lot of wood here. And then Ken brought up the ownership of the logs. So for our Mayalawata restoration project, all those logs we worked it out with the Forest Service that the tribe has ownership of these logs. So the tribe is able to sell these logs. So they could be used for the tribal elder wood program or be able to generate revenue for the tribe.
Which was the formula of the you have to have a balance between a certain percentage. We're a nonprofit organization. We're tribal government. We're not out to pay stockholders or anybody. We're just trying to produce enough revenue so that we can provide that free wood that our tribal elders have grown to depend on, provide it for those needy people in our communities and areas, and provide it to the other tribes who do not have access to it, to the mountains and the wood supplies. While we continue to utilize the biomass the Forest Service needs out of the forest to keep the forest healthy. So it's that double objectives, helping out and helping the forest and helping the people. And how do we sustain that? Our plan at the time is we sell the wood. Summer's here. Firewood sales have dropped in the summer. Much of our crew is working on other projects in the woods and under other agreements. But have been looking for a way. That's where we started. We acquired a bundler, and we bundle firewood now, and we're trying to market it to the campgrounds and the other places that use firewood during the summer. So we can continue to build that revenue, so we can provide that free wood in the fall and in the winter for those in need through selling it to recreational sites and facilities and for recreational purposes. And then come winter and fall, everybody will be looking for firewood again, and we'll be back in the normal bulk firewood distribution. So Washoe wood, sale wood, goes hand in hand with our share wood program, which is where we're providing it at cost to our other tribal neighbors who don't have access to the wood, and then our elderwood program where we provide it for the tribal elders in our area. Let's keep next slide. In our solutions, we've been trying to learn as much as we can about the latest and greatest. Workforce is very critical, but at the same time, work personnel is the most expensive component of a wood yard, as most of you probably know. It's paying people wages to split the wood and process the wood and deliver the wood. If you're doing it for yourself, for your own purposes, you don't worry about things like workman's comp and insurance and certifications and training. But when you're having an employed crew, that all comes into factor, and you need people who can operate the different pieces of equipment, can drive the vehicles, can do the work safely, effectively, and efficiently. Things that we've been very happy with is our firewood processors. We pursued the brute force in 2023. In 2025, we received another WPIA grant so we could increase our production. And we went out, and Brute Force had been purchased by Timberwolf company. These are firewood log processors. You load the logs on a deck. With the operator at a control panel can feed a log into the trough. The trough will move the log forward under the saw. The saw comes down. You cut the log at whatever length you want. It drops down into a tray, and then the hydraulic ram will push it into the splitter, splits the log into a conveyor belt and up into your truck, up into your pile, or into your firewood bag, and your processing. With the Timberwolf, currently one person can produce a cord an hour with one of these processors. There's a number of processors out there. We selected something that, one, fit the budget, two, that we were confident we had the technology and the ability to keep it maintained and keep it operational. And it still made our operation much more efficient. Split force, the vertical splitters was another great tool. Other tools that we found that have been very helpful that we don't have pictures of is a thing called a stump buster. It's a device that attaches to our skid steer that takes the 30, 40 of the very large rounds of firewood that we can cut, and it'll break them into quarters so that the splitters can actually get them up to the vertical splitter without breaking their backs. There's other tools out there. If anybody's heard of it, the atom splitter. It's like a giant drill that you can put into a log and take a log and split the log into different quarters so that it can be loaded onto the processor. Our processors only process up to 20-inch logs. Wonderfully so, our logs from the lodgepole pine from my Alawata Mixed Meadow project are all beautifully coming out at about under 24 inches, which works great for our processors. But since we open our wood yard to everybody and anybody, we get a lot of very large stuff that's not marketable, but it's still 30, 40, 50-inch diameter logs that have to be bucked and broken down into smaller pieces to work with. Other things that we've found are worthwhile investments have been our grapple truck. Once again, we have a great supply of logs coming out of Meeks Meadow, but also we get lots of calls and contacts from different places that have log decks that they're available at the edge of the forest. They've been put into piles for us, but we need to get them haul them ourselves. So we worked with the Forest Service to invest in a debris truck. The reason we went with a debris truck instead of a log truck is because often arborists and other people will cut the logs into too small of lengths, so they don't fit on the log truck bunks properly. A debris truck can take any size of log. It can self-load it, bring it down, dump it out the back, but it can still haul full 18-foot logs if needed. Telehandler is a great tool. And once again, our split force splitters. Next slide. Anything else with that?
That does conclude our slides. And so now we can move into question and answers. I know we have a couple all ready to start. One interested in how you secured the firewood lot, and where it's located.
Thank you. Our firewood lot is next to our tribal headquarters. It is tribal land. It was part of our tribal ranch land that wasn't being utilized. And in 2021, during the Tamarack fire, the Forest Service was looking for a place to bring logs. It had just been a vacant lot that was available to the tribe as part of the tribe's land. We worked with it was under the control and management of our Washoe Development Corporation, that is the business component of the tribe. And we had to collaborate with them, work with them, and they have provided us 15 acres of farmland to use as our wood yard. When you use farmland or pasture land to process firewood, it makes it seasonal type operation, which is a good segue to the fact that Alliance for the Green Heat has been a great supporter, because our wood yard would get soggy anytime it rained. We're fairly dry around here, but our rains would come pretty heavy, pretty strong, and we couldn't operate in our wood yard with. And so, luckily, with the Alliance for Green Heat wood yard firewood bank grants, we were able to get gravel and road base so we could actually build working areas in our formerly used pasture and actually move logs and equipment around out of the mud, which has been a huge benefit for us. But we're just using tribal land adjacent to our tribal headquarters.
I know there's another question coming in. When it comes to looking forward for wood product infrastructure grant opportunities, what do you see as the most beneficial infrastructure to try and procure?
Currently, our biggest, most beneficial future infrastructure is going to be something to help us distribute the firewood. Outside of personnel costs, the next cost is delivery. We deliver the firewood to our elders. That's home to home. We take the firewood to those elders, and currently we only have the ability to deliver small loads, 3 cords at the most, to an elder. It gets expensive when you look at the time and the fuel costs, the equipment costs to go back and forth that many times. We serve over 150 elders, and so that's a lot of delivery. We currently do not have other than our debris truck, the ability to deliver large bulk loads of firewood. We get requests from other tribes, other agencies, communities far away that want large amounts of firewood. We can produce the firewood. We don't have a way to get it to them. So we've pursued a WPA grant to get a what we call a walking bed, a semi-trailer where we can haul 20 to 25 cords of firewood at long distance with the semi truck and drop it off. We have looked into the cost of using commercial haulers, and either way, it's not been a cost so far has not been cost effective. We're not a for-profit. We're trying to do everything as efficiently as possible so that we can have the revenue to provide the free firewood. So that's kind of been an ongoing challenge, is that the efficiency of distribution of bulk firewood, large amounts of firewood to the general public, local, our elders and our community members more efficiently, and bulk deliveries. Something we're working with on this next year is palletizing of the wood. We tried bulk firewood bags in our environment here out west. The UV rays, the firewood bags aren't lasting as long as we'd hoped. They last about 2 years. So we're working on using pallets, palletizing, other ways to handle it less, handle it more efficiently, be able to load it onto flatbed trucks and load it, which from processing to onto a pallet, from the pallet to the truck to the delivery point. So we're not losing a lot of time with handling our firewood as we try to distribute it in small quantities or in large quantities. That's our next focus, is because we have the biomass coming out. We have the ability to haul it to our yards. We have enough partners now that are bringing us logs, and we have the ability to process it. Now we need the ability to get it out of the area because we're a small community, like Caleb mentioned. Gardnerville, Nevada is not very big, and so there's not a lot of people locally who. I mean, a lot of people do need firewood, but not to the quantities that we're producing. When we start going out above 1,000 cords a year, we need a place to send that out. So if anybody needs firewood, let us know. We're working on ways to distribute long distance. We have an abundance of it, and we'd be happy to ship it out to people. But that's our future direction, is the distribution of it.
If anything, CDL training comes to mind specifically. What specialized training do you see as an important addition to your wood program's future, whether that's manufacturing or forestry or air quality awareness, those types of things? Anything come to mind?
Well, one is, like you mentioned, CDLs. We're in competition with the big trucking companies. There's a shortage of drivers in the nation. What we start doing is we send our tribal members and our employees to truck driver school. State of Nevada passed a regulation that requires it. For a Class A, you must attend a school, where in the old days you could just demonstrate competence and you can get your license. Now you must attend a 30-day school to get a Class A in the state of Nevada. State of California has other requirements, but that CDL is a ongoing challenge. Trucking companies pay well. There's a shortage of truck drivers. Firewood does not pay that well. And we have to be, one, has to be competitive. We have to have the market to put those drivers to use, but we still need that operator ability. Heavy equipment operations. I mean, moving logs in a yard efficiently requires heavy equipment operation. And often the splitter that we're using are more complex. They are hydraulics. They are uh, mechanical tools. It's not just swinging them all in a wedge. You got to understand hydraulics and how to work the machinery, how to maintain the machinery, how to uh, operate a combination of tools at there. Along with that is that the sustainable program means that we have to be able to help bring the logs out of the forest. That's where we work closely with our environmental team who have these stewardship programs and these for meadow restoration projects. But how do we bring those logs out? Low impact to the forest, keeping the forest healthy, but still remove all that biomass and get it out of the forest instead of just leaving it there to be fuels for wildfires.
Good answers. Okay, for any audience members, if there's more questions to be considered or anything else that Kale or Ken would like to elaborate on, we're open to them right now. And if we don't see any new ones come through, it's been great to hear about the wood program. One specific question for you, Kale. I know you told me briefly about the newer initiative on air quality and just kind of understanding wildfire impact around this area. Does that awareness of wildfire smoke and environmental smoke kind of translate into residential wood burning, or is the smoke input of residential wood burning noticeable at all?
Yeah, it's definitely noticeable, definitely in the colder months. Like we see inversions over here in the Carson Valley. So if you're up on top of, coming down from Lake Tahoe, you'll definitely see the inversion down here in the valley. Um, which is hard to deal with because a lot of people burn wood down in the Carson Valley. It's a lot of people's main sources of wood, of heat. But definitely one thing that we're mainly looking at is more wildfire smoke. Um, you guys can't see, but over here on the left side of Highway 395 when you're going south, there's a lot of tribal allotment land. So a lot of those lands have been burned like the past 10, 15 years. There's probably been 4 or 5 different fires that seem to only hit the same areas over and over again. So a lot with that, just a lot of wildfire smoke. A lot of our tribal population is elderly, so we have a lot of elders, a lot of youth. Those are the most susceptible populations for PM 2.5, which is wood smoke. So definitely been monitoring that, doing different initiatives on our end of doing indoor air purifiers for our susceptible populations with, a couple of HEPA air filters, regular box fan, duct tape, and just have them running inside the home. And those have been great to reduce just the smell of smoke in people's houses. So different initiatives like that, but overall, we're more focused right now. It's mainly due to a limitation on funding, grant funds to be able to monitor that type of stuff. So like Ken mentioned, even the work for the wood yard, a lot of that is also limited by funding. So like if Ken's going out to get people with CDLs, things like that, well, if we're bringing out a couple guys who have to go to 30 days CDL, then that's 30 days where they're just in class and not, eventually they'll be productive to be able to go out and to drive trucks and all that. But for those 30 days, you have 2, 3 guys doing CDL classes. Well, they're out of commission for that long, then getting other training for additional staff and, whatever they have to do on the wood yard. That's another huge cost. Then maintenance of all the equipment, things like that. And same with us too. We're just limited by the amount of grant funding and what's allowable under these grants. So as long as we're able to continue these relationships and build new ones with other forests and our partners, we definitely want to get out on more restoration projects similar to Meeks, to be able to continue taking biomass out and get them down for our tribal elders and potentially keeping the woodyard program going and make it sustainable. Definitely, we don't want to go in and cut the trees down, just have, one big project and that's it. We definitely want to just keep a steady supply of projects going to keep this project running.
Cool. I'm excited for the future collaboration between all departments and
Thanks for letting us
state
do
and
this.
federal. Yes, and thank you all for attending. Join us for our next webinar in the future and have a safe and happy summer.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.